You just won the Democratic nomination for governor last week.
Yep.
Congratulations on the win. And right after your victory, the Republicans have come out swinging.
They're scared.
Some might question using the words radical activist to describe the former head of the NAACP, but
they're usually radical activists would question that. Like what?
So they're arguing that things are going well under.
As far as they're concerned,
Hogan.
The NAACP is the establishment. We've said from the beginning, I'm not running to the left, I'm not running towards the right, I'm running to the people of the state. I started off this campaign just listening to working families across the state, including folks who voted for Trump. And what you heard, and voted for Hogan, and what you heard again and again was that about 85% of the big kitchen table issues facing any family are the same as every other working family. Kids are coming out of college deep in debt. Healthcare costs keep skyrocketing. Under Larry Hogan, they're up more than 10% every year. Schools have fallen from 1st to 6th, but there's also just a sense of underlying fragility that they're just not as well funded. A lot of frustration that the casino revenues weren't used, for instance, to significantly increase funding for the schools. The opiate crisis. Here in Baltimore City, killing more people than bullets by a long shot, and across the state. Terrifying. And so what I've done from the beginning of this campaign is just simply have the courage to level with the people and say this is what it takes. I'm a lifelong community organizer, I'm a civil rights leader, I teach public policy, and I was trained by my grandma, who also helped train Barbara Mikulski. My grandma was a 101-year-old retired Maryland social worker, and she would always just say, look, baby, you can't half solve a problem, because you still got a problem. So I'm committed to giving the people of Maryland whole solutions to the real problems that face their families, and things we can do in real time to improve lives.
Now, it's going to be an uphill battle against Governor Hogan. He's the incumbent in the state. He said he's created 100,000 jobs. He says he's gotten the government off the backs and out of the pockets of people, of residents across Maryland. Things are going well. It's his argument. He even recently changed his Facebook page and his campaign Facebook profile to say Democrats for Hogan.
Yeah.
That's his argument, right?
He's
going for the Democratic votes.
He's scared. I mean, what he knows is this. The only way he got in office is we had the lowest Democratic turnout since 1942. And if we simply turn out Democrats at the level we did at 2010, there's virtually no way for him to win. What he also knows is that's what I specialize in. As the youngest president in the history of the NAACP, I was called the unsung hero of Obama's re-election by Van Jones on CNN. So we turn out 1.2 million unlikely voters. So we turn out those 2010 voters we win, we turn out unlikely voters we wallop them. And I've shown the ability to compete in every corner of the state. I won in 22 out of 24 counties. I was leading in the rural parts of the state for months. And so he knows that my brand of kind of kitchen table politics, focusing on fully funding education, getting healthcare costs truly under control by taking on every pharmaceutical company, by moving to state-based Medicare for all, ending mass incarceration, and using the money to bring down the cost of public higher education. He knows that there's a lot of people who want that. They're not just Democrats, they're independents, and they're even some of the folks who voted for him. And so I'll bring the fight to him, and we'll win.
A lot's been made across the country with wins like yours. We saw what happened in New York and in other states of progressive challengers taking on the establishment within the Democratic Party. So far, the majority of the Democratic Party of the state that didn't back you in the primary has come around, and
everybody's on board.
Backed you.
Everybody's on board. I mean, Fran Cho, quite frankly, our concern was going to run in support of Hogan, and so the fact that he's staying neutral, I see as an improvement based on what our concern was. Everybody else is in support. Senator Cardin, Senator Van Hollen, all the Congress people who are Democrats, all but one. The major county execs, past Governor O'Malley, all of them. I've worked with all these folks and worked well with them. I led the effort to abolish the death penalty, but also co-chaired the effort to pass the DREAM Act, help pass marriage equality, and a number of smaller civil rights victories and some county-level victories around getting money out of politics. I brought John Sarbanes and I together, for example. And so we have a long series of relationships, and I feel good. And quite frankly, they also saw me win by a 10% margin, 22 out of 24 counties, so they know that my campaign has the energy to increase the vote, and that benefits all of us.
And your plans for places like Baltimore City, where we've seen endemic poverty for generations, that have been controlled by by Democrats for generations. Those plans to revitalize those areas have not gotten much attention in the press. Talk about what your vision is and how it's going to be different than what's been happening for the last several decades, which doesn't seem like it's improving conditions very much.
It's not, and Larry Hogan's been a real disappointment in that respect. I mean, under him, schools are down, healthcare costs are up, violence is up in Baltimore City, for example. Opiate deaths are up. The economy's stuck. People's incomes literally have risen by thousands in surrounding states in the last few years, but in Maryland, just by hundreds. And one of the things that's different about me that doesn't usually make the soundbite is I'm a tech investor. That's what I've done for the last 5 years. I invest in social impact tech companies, double bottom line. An example, Pigeonly, co-founded by a graduate of Morgan State. It's cut the cost of your loved one calling home from prison by 80%. It serves about 30% of federal inmates, now expanding into state facilities. And 68% of our companies have a Black, Latino, or female founder. In fact, the fastest growing one, a woman named Ana Roca Castro, she's all above. She's Afro-Dominicana. And so what I know is that Maryland can build a much more robust economy. It means we're going to have a plan. Terry McAuliffe, I think somewhat surprisingly, attracted a bunch of cybersecurity headquarters to Virginia that people expected to be in Maryland because we have NSA and Cyber Command. And then I said, how'd you do that? He said, well, plan beats no plan. Your guy doesn't have a plan. We have Larry Hogan said that he would keep every Fortune 500 company here. And they thought, I don't know, magically, because maybe he's a Republican, he would do that. Well, he's already lost one. And what I know is that the bedrock of our economy are small businesses, including our startups. And we can keep a lot more of them here. We can grow more than we are. And we can become a leader, make Baltimore the capital of the green technology economy. We can make Maryland once again number 3 in health sciences, while even building on some strengths like cybersecurity, and in the process expand our economy in ways that Hogan has failed to do. You look at medical cannabis, $200 million industry. Blacks and Latinos are completely locked out of the 24 licenses. When I'm governor, I will lead us in making cannabis legal for adult use, period. We'll regulate it, we'll tax it, but we'll also make sure that the entrepreneurs reflect the state.
Would you support something like what they're doing in Oakland, where former victims of mass incarceration are sort of first in line to get those licenses?
Absolutely. We have to make sure that the communities that have been most ravaged by the war on drugs benefit from shifting to saner policies and, frankly, pulling money out of the pockets of the cartels and the gangs and putting it in the pockets of farmers and business people. Absolutely. I think it's important to not just focus on ownership, but as you signaled, to also focus on the jobs. One of the ways you can do that is it's called micro zip code targeting. Your zip code, you typically think it was 5 digits, but it's actually 9 digits. And those last 4 digits after the dash can take you right down to like one part of a block. And so you can say, like, in these 9-digit zip codes, this is where the open-air drug markets have been. This is where the epicenter of the war on drugs has been. And we've got to hire people from those areas, too.
So many are expecting these midterm elections to be a referendum on Trump's presidency. We know that with the Supreme Court possibly changing, with Trump trying to appoint a new justice to replace Kennedy in the next few months before the election, a lot of people are going to come out and vote. Hogan has gone out of his way to distance himself from President Trump, even though he's a Republican. Do you think it's right to sort of tie those two figures together?
Hogan's tied himself to Trump's coattails via his lieutenants. Betsy DeVos, please come into our state. And then he mimics her by shifting tens of millions of dollars from our general fund, not to the public schools that are underfunded, but to private schools in the form of vouchers. Jeff Sessions, he literally parrots him on immigration policy and on incarceration policy, calling for a return to the failed truth in sentencing policies that are wildly expensive and implementing new mandatory minimums. And then on the Chesapeake Bay, Larry Hogan, more than any other Republican, could have blocked the appointment of Scott Pruitt, but he stood silent. All he had to do is say, hey, guys, I'm governor of Maryland, one of the most popular governors in the country. This dude's from Oklahoma, and he's already promised to destroy the Chesapeake Bay restoration plan. Instead, Larry Hogan tries to have it both ways. He takes credit for things really Obama did as far as cleaning up the Bay, while literally not only being a welcome mat for Scott Pruitt, just laying down and letting be stepped all over, but also making it easier to pollute our bay. The poultry industry invested $250,000 in helping to elect him his first day in office. He cut regulations to make it easier to literally dump chicken mess straight into the bay.
Finally, we're almost out of time, but final question. We know that with the Supreme Court decision in Janus, it's going to hurt public sector unions, which backed you, in a big way in the primary. We know that working people across the state and this country are struggling. At Johns Hopkins Hospital, there's workers that are trying to form a union with the national nurses and who endorsed you. And they're saying that they're facing unfair labor practices. The hospital is denying it. What's your message to working people around the country and in the state of Maryland who are fighting for better work?
We need labor peace. Every working person has a right to organize. That needs to be respected. When it comes to public sector unions, I know what built my family's good fortune. Both my grandparents were able to become state workers here in Maryland, one a probation officer, the other social worker, and become members of AFSCME. My grandmother's a 101-year-old retired Maryland social worker. Under Larry Hogan, she's looking at her pharmaceutical prices jumping through the roof. I will make sure that people's pensions are protected, that they're well treated, that we frankly make their jobs less risky. Hogan has allowed there to become extreme shortages, including for corrections officers. I've talked to corrections officers who had their skull fractured multiple times, legs broken, and it's because they're understaffed, and he's done nothing on that. So I'll have the back of working people. I'll have the back of people who want to organize. Not only am I a grandson of two proud union members, I'm a former union member myself, and I know that working people deserve the right to bargain for a better wage. A quarter of our workers in this country, similar in Maryland, have to sign non-compete agreements, and I'm talking about when you're working for a fast food restaurant. So you literally cannot say, hey, they'll pay me 50 cents per hour more, why don't you pay me a quarter? They can't negotiate at all, and we've got to make sure that every worker has the right to advocate for themselves and to organize to get better wages and better treatment for their family.
All right, Ben Jealous, thank you so much for joining us. You are the Democratic nominee for governor of Maryland. We're going to be following this campaign really closely on therealnews.com, so watch all of our coverage. Check out our website, Facebook, and Twitter. Thanks so much for watching.